let's talk a bit about air travel in the way of the ethical angst that's attached to it. It's almost a dirty secret that people have if they fly and they feel bad about flying. And I count myself in that group as well. I'm wondering if you think that, I mean, obviously air travel, or maybe not so obviously, air travel has some benefits. I think people would argue, trade, cultural cross-fertilization. Do those in any way? I know Ed, you particularly.
Spreading of swine flu.
Yes, well, this is. I was going to get the other side exactly. Turning local flu epidemics into global pandemics is the darker side, and of course the environmental drawbacks as well. I know Ed, in your personal and also
we're cutting some costs.
Yes, right. SoftBank.
Well, no, it's good carbon saving behaviour.
It isn't it? Yes. This will be a carbon neutral event. Damn. Yes. I'm wondering if where you because I know that you travel for work to the continent and so on. You always go by boat or rail and so on. And I know that I don't. I do if I can, but I often fly. Am I wrong? Am I bad? Am I evil? Should I be tossing and turning at night and waking up in a cold sweat?
That's not at all low.
Is there a middle way here, or should we just stop flying tomorrow, all of us?
I mean, I still think it's a matter of personal choice. I think if you know all the facts, it's very difficult to justify, particularly short-haul travel now. I think I go with what Harry was saying about the fact that the costs and the pricing structures are all completely wrong, and you can't blame people for doing that. And I think that leadership has to come from government, because you can't exactly imagine the plane companies are going to voluntarily scale back their flights and their routes. I don't think we're going to voluntarily give them up. I think people are too wedded and enamoured by the whole concept of the bucket flight. And so it has to come from government if you're going to modify that demand and change the pricing signals. Now, I made a very personal decision, which is sort of not always popular with my kind of friends, I'm not ruled out never flying again. But
when was the last time you flew?
Last time I flew on holiday was nearly 6 years ago. I think the brutal truth of it is, and the bit that the aviation industry really doesn't want you to kind of really get to grips with, is that as soon as you take a single flight, you start to drive a coach and horses through your allocation. And if we're serious about the direction of where we're going, and if you read all the reports and Nick Stern's latest book about a blueprint for a safer planet, we are looking towards a 2-ton lifestyle of carbon. Now already in the UK on average, even if you don't fly, you have a 10-ton lifestyle. As soon as you get on a plane, you're taking it up to a 14 or 15-ton lifestyle. If it's a transatlantic flight, it's a 17-ton lifestyle. And so the maths just really don't add up. And fundamentally, they'll say that aviation is only 2 or 3% of global carbon. But actually, in the UK, it's about 13% of our carbon emissions, because we are actually huge flyers, and we fly an enormous amount. Now, from my personal perspective, I've taken the option to always travel wherever there's an alternative. I'll take it. And even in Futera, well, we have to travel for work. We've now started to say if people need to take holiday and they want to do it by slow travel, we'll give them an extra day of holiday, so they don't feel like the time is wasted on the train. But it really is that spirit of adventure again. And in a world where it's as easy as anything to get yourself to the other side of the world just by rocking up to Heathrow with your passport and a credit card, actually getting there overland and by sea is tremendously challenging, exciting, and really rediscovers that sense of adventure and makes it a bit different.
Yeah. If you have stopped taking flights in the way that Ed has, I wonder if you might raise your hand. Just me one, right? So we have a long way to go. But I certainly like that's a very sort of slow take on it, the idea that this is not about slamming people on the head with a puritanical sledgehammer, but about relearning that art of taking pleasure in travel. We've talked about engines and so on. Let's talk about other kinds of technology and how they're reshaping our relationship with travel. I was in the United States recently, and I flew there, I didn't take a banana boat. And I was at a public event, and a 19-year-old chap stood up at the back, and he said to me, we were talking about travel and slow travel, and he said, I don't actually feel the need to go to London anymore. And I said, why, what's that all about? And he said, well, have you seen Google Street View? And I kind of waited for him to laugh, because I just assumed it was a joke, but he wasn't. He said, I spent 3 hours just checking London out, and now I don't have to go there and put up with the bad food and the bad weather and the bad teeth. He said, And now, is that where we're going? And is there something that technology can maybe bring to us that saves us in the short run from the environmental degradation we do, or does this add another register to our travel,
yeah.
another layer to our travel?
I think there's definitely an element of that, because so much of travel is about that kind of tick box mentality, of sort of surging around and seeing all the well-viewed sites, and actually you get such immersive experiences online. You can practically walk around the Tower of London from the inside, on the internet. And you can do those type of things, and maybe it does take a little bit of an edge off it. And so I think actually it comes back to the serendipity thing and the slow travel thing and the adventure elements that you get from travelling off the beaten track a little bit more.
I think the hunger for real experience is perennial and has not changed in thousands of years. And I don't think virtual experience can ever be the same as real experience. So I don't really believe in that. I mean, that's just me personally.
I would open to questions in the audience, but just before I do that, I want to read a quote from Milan Kundera and ask a question off the back of it to our two speakers, Honoré and Ed. The quote is this: "It's our period is obsessed with the desire to forget, and it is to fulfill that desire that it gives over to the demon of speed. It picks up the pace to show us that it no longer wishes to be remembered, that it is tired of itself, sick of itself, that it wants to blow out the tiny, trembling flame of memory." And a big part of travel, I think, is remembering, isn't it? Even as you're experiencing it, you're beginning to see it as a memory, aren't you? I mean, people taking photos, making log notes, and so on. How do you see the whole kind of slow, fast thing playing out there? Is that part of what we're trying to bring back, is memory with this slow travel? I mean, do you remember your slow travel?
We could talk about memory and also being mindful. I mean, the word memory also includes really in Latin, memor, it means sort of being mindful. So and if you're really, I mean, we think about remembering something, we're going to remember in the future, but if we're really mindful, that's what we maybe might be moving towards in this slow travel. If we're actually mindful of what we're doing, then perhaps we don't even need to have these sort of extra special memories of the great trip to Machu Picchu.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'd have to make reference to our trip, but I think the extraordinary thing about the kind of the overland travel and the slow travel that we did is that you have a kind of almost complete mental and visual memory of almost every day of the journey. I can actually still, even now, having been back over a year, practically plot out, what we did each day crudely, because everything led on in a kind of continuous link, all the way around the world. And I think, because we travelled through the world and over every inch of it, you can build up that continuous visually linked memory in your mind and recall it very vividly. And whereas you wouldn't have that with a kind of more disjointed bunny hop of aircraft flights between different destinations. And so it was a continuum all the way around.